Hey, good evening, fam. Back with another episode of the Left, Right, Left podcast with your handsome host, aka the Silver Fox, Mark R. Chabot, United States Marine Corps Star Sergeant, retired. Man, it's been a hell of a year. We're getting ready to wrap it up. And I just want to give a shout out real quick to my sponsor, Devil's Backbone Brewery. If you have not tried the greatest IPA in the country, you should give it a go. 8-point IPA, Devil's Backbone. I'm going to put it down here on the screen. Go ahead and give that a try for your holidays. I assure you, you will not regret it. Virginia Brewing Company. Tonight, though, Mom would be proud of me. I'm drinking some Schweppes ginger ale. Okay, time is of the essence here. It's holiday time, and I got a father and a husband over here, so I don't want to waste his time. So let's get right into it. My brother's sitting across from me. We served together as 2nd Combat Engineer Battalion. He was one of my NCOs over there, and I was his first sergeant. Him and I had an amazing deployment together. We traveled all over Afghanistan, visited every single Marine in our company, did the best that we could, trying to make sure they're outfitted and their welfare was taken care of together. But he served in the Marine Corps for over 10 years. And ultimately, his career ended abruptly because of some issues that were lingering that he had through combat deployments, marital, all these other things. I'm going to let him fill in the blanks for you about how that happened. And the good news is at the end of this, there is a hell of a redemption story coming. So make sure you guys tune in for the whole thing. But hey, let's give a warm round of applause to my brother, Jonathan Lehman. Brother.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the show,
to be
man.
Here.
It's good to see your face again, man. I miss you.
Yeah, I miss seeing you around.
I know, right? Who doesn't?
Yeah.
All right, man. Hey, let's go ahead and kick it back to the beginning, man. Tell everybody a little bit about, yourself, where you grew up, all those things. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I was born and raised in Central Ohio. I always knew I was going to be a Marine. Growing up, that's when we had the fighting the dragon commercials and the climbing the cliff commercial. Yep. So I mean, I don't know how anyone didn't want to join the Marine Corps. So, of course, that got me. I joined the delayed entry program when I was 17 at the end of my junior year. Very important, back in Ohio, growing up, I met my wife in 4th grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I needed to include that. Met my wife in 4th grade, and we stayed close throughout elementary school, junior high, high school. 2 weeks after high school, left for boot camp. Stayed in touch with Kirby, my future wife, deployed with 2nd CEB to Afghanistan. That was the push back to Afghanistan. Everything was dying down in Iraq. And this was supposed to be a one-time deployment of 2,000 Marines to support NATO in their mission over there. We turned out to have made more of an impact than they thought we would. So they held us firm for a little bit, extended us until they could get more replacements situated. And that started a whole new trend back to Afghanistan. Coming back to the States, that's when I met you and an Alpha company, and we had that second deployment together.
Yeah. Hey, shout out to your old platoon commander at the time, Lieutenant Colter Balo and Bo Hall, gunnery sergeant type. Great leaders that you had then.
Huge inspiration and still ever so faithful leaders. Lieutenant Colonel Belu is still talk to him all the time, FaceTime him. When I applied for my MBA program, he was one of the recommendation, wrote my letter of recommendation. So that still, nothing like your first platoon.
Yeah. Well, let's back up. Let's back up a little bit. 2nd Combat Engineer Battalion, you get back, you and I are together, we deploy together, and you were my battle buddy, for the whole entire deployment, and you accompanied me and watched my 6. I don't know, we must have taken at least, 60 different, flights all around the AO and, and hundreds of hours in MRAPs to go visit every single Marine at every outpost. I just told that story on Friday at Sergeant Major Dwayne Reese's retirement. So I just want to say, hey, thank you for, watching my back and stuff. You did a great job, man. Hey, man, so you wrap up your tour at 2nd Combat Engineer Battalion. I remember I got your orders to drill instructor school.
So we were, first we were on deployment together. And actually, if you remember before deployment, I somehow wound up with orders to Quantico. And you called me one day and said, hey, are you deploying with me or are you going to Quantico? And I was kind of blindsided because I didn't know I was going to Quantico. And I just wanted to deploy with you. And you were like, all right, well, so, you deploy with me and then we'll find you some orders somewhere so you and the wife and the new baby can, have some time. So when we were deployed together, you actually found me orders to Weapons Field Training Battalion on Paris Island.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. And so when I came back from that deployment, came down to Weapons Field Training Battalion, and down here wound up learning a lot of logistics, and wound up learning a lot of how facilities maintenance works, and actually a lot more drill than I wanted to before the drill field. From there, though, I tried going to the drill field, and they said they wouldn't let me go just yet. So somebody got me hot fill orders up the road to MDOBSS 273. And I was supposed to deploy with them. I was the platoon sergeant with them, did a workup with them, went to CAX and everything. Just before that deployment, did one of those pre-deployment TBI tests on the computer, and I failed it miserably, and they actually held me back from that deployment. And that was probably one of the first big red flags that I should have caught. I didn't really take that seriously.
Were you exposed to some blasting stuff on your first deployment?
I was, and then also a couple on that second deployment, but
yeah, I remember those. Those sucked.
Yeah, but you know, we never the type of deployments those were. It really wasn't the type where you could stop and go get checked out. And I'm not complaining. It was just the type of deployments those were. But yeah, I bombed that TBI test. They held me back, and I had watched my platoon that I had, my first platoon that I really got to know as a platoon sergeant, go off and deploy. And that actually wound up being the one where they infiltrated Camp Leatherneck, if you remember.
Yeah, I do.
So here I was thinking, at least they're on Leatherneck, they're pretty safe. And that actually was the deployment that they broke the perimeter, and I know they blew up a couple planes and got into the hangar and stuff.
Yeah.
So that was actually a pretty rough time. I was supposed to be going through TBI therapy and some other counseling and stuff. However, I had decided on my own that I just needed to go find another billet or another duty station to take my mind off of it. So I walked into medical and said, "Hey, I'm actually doing a lot better, and I want to go be a drill instructor," because they are desperate. That was when they started histing people for DI duty. So I saw that as an opportunity. So I said, "Hey, yeah, I'm ready to go." And they were like, "Fantastic, no questions asked." Signed off. I didn't have to retest or anything. Actually, the day I showed up at DI school, Sergeant Major Miller, who was an instructor there, knew I was coming, of course, and they were looking through the medical records and saw that I'd had that stuff, but I was motivated, ready to go, so I was able to proceed with DI school.
How would you describe? So you go to DI school, right? And I've been through DI duty too, but I'm curious on your thoughts because you were a little bit younger than I was when you went through. How would you describe your 3-year tour on drill instructor duty?
You know what? It's hard being a sergeant in the streets.
Yeah.
But you know what? There's a certain swagger that goes along with that. So I was watching one earlier where yourself and another first sergeant were talking about being gunnery sergeants on the drill field. And of course, being a sergeant nearly the whole time I was a drill instructor, I've got a bit of a chip on my shoulder, but not a big one. I think what it is inherently sergeant drill instructors have a little more enthusiasm, I guess you could call it. I wound up being lucky enough to be on all sergeant decks nearly the entire time, which all had so much more energy. And then past that, my company that I got to be a part of, hotel company, had so much energy, charisma, and camaraderie. We had so much fun doing it. My whole goal was to be a sergeant senior. However, because of how many people were in line, how many staff NCOs were in line, I wound up being do you guys have company heavies over on the West Coast?
Oh, they call them strong J's, strong junior drill instructors.
So I was the company heavy twice, because everyone said, if you successfully make it as the company heavy one cycle, you should be a shoo-in for a boss next cycle.
Yeah.
So I put up with it the whole cycle, and then they were like, "Well, you'll go to quota at the pool, and when you come back, you should be good." I came back and did the company heavy thing again, which is it's fine. Got promoted to staff sergeant and did one cycle as a boss.
Did you get fucked with? Did you get names and shit? Did they play fuck games with you and stuff like that? Like when you were a younger drill instructor.
Van Beacom was my boss.
Oh, yeah. That dude's a pro, man.
I'm not gonna say he effed with me, but he certainly made sure that I was trained properly.
Yeah, but no like demeaning, like, take away your dignity type games. No stupid shit like that.
No, no.
It's good. It's good. I'm glad to hear that, man.
I I can say that I ran hard enough so no one would think to play that game.
That's good.
I wound up making a bet with another drill instructor before one cycle to see who could go down the hardest from working so hard. And I won, but I guess I lost because one cycle I lost my gallbladder. My gallbladder almost popped, but I was only down for 2 weeks. Speaking of, being hurt and then avoiding medical,
Yeah.
I had to get emergency surgery, get the gallbladder removed through my belly button. Because it was done out in town, there wasn't a lot of communication between that and our medical. So I told them I only needed 2 weeks off and came back to work. Again, not complaining. I loved every second of it. That was a great cycle. Love that team so much, and I would have done it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah. It's a very rewarding tour, man, like to say the least. I felt like I felt just very accomplished, and I felt like, I just loved the transformation process. I didn't like a lot of I don't know, man, the stupid things that I used to see go on, and kind of like the way that some of the drill instructors were demeaned. I didn't appreciate that, and I didn't care to see that. There's nothing worse than just like seeing a dude sleeping inside the whiskey locker, him saying like him sleeping in his freaking car and stuff instead of a duty hut because, he doesn't rate, he hasn't been there long enough. And
Right.
I hate that stuff. But I will tell you that the transformation process was amazing. There's nothing better than watching a damn jacked up friggin' recruit being a nice friggin' sharp, squared away friggin' young whippersnapper there in front of his parents, and having his parents walk up to you and be like, "Thank you. It's good shit."
There's a little animosity towards those parents.
Some, yes, sir, a little bit. Yeah.
Kind of wondering why they didn't do their job.
Yeah, why did you do that? But they're not Marine drill instructors, man. That's different.
That's fair.
It's fair, right?
Sometimes you can train them a little too well, and then they become robots.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah,
Yeah.
not
We seeing them posting road guards for their family on Family Day, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
what did I do?
yeah.
But we trained them hard, trained them smart, the right way. While I was there, that's when the recruit Saeed happened.
Yeah, Siddiqui. Kurt Siddiqui.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I was there during that time, different battalion, but that was during my last cycle. And in the 3 years that I was there, you could see the culture shift in waves between when I first got there, and you could still see some of that nonsense that you're talking about kind of go back down to a little bit. You're not allowed saying scream. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that was a mandate at one point to having, like Sergeant Major Archie come on the depot, and then the temperature went up and then go back down. And then that incident happened, and all of a sudden everything really changed, and I got out of there because, that's inevitably what's going to happen when an event like that occurs.
That investigation was so my old commanding officer actually was the investigating officer of that incident, and I read that thing from front to back, and then it used to be part of our pickup cycles for all our drill instructor companies where they would have to review that and just look for those traps and things that it starts with the little things. It starts with little things like, you got to hate the friggin' recruits. You don't friggin' answer any of their questions. You don't look out for their welfare because you're a new drill instructor. That's all bad stuff. And once the virus gets infected with the herd, man, forget about it, man. And then, unfortunately, like you said, the temperature gets so hot, and that becomes a new norm. And then it takes, unfortunately, a family to lose a loved one or to get things back to where they should be in the first place. But that was a tough read, brother. That was a very, very tough read.
Yeah, especially seeing a lot of the things in that obviously have no training value.
None.
And even past that, things that I can't imagine a recruit would be happening to a recruit would be scared of. Like the recruit would obviously know, okay, this is nonsense.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be scaring a recruit or making them want to be better.
No, man, like you're more hurting, like personally, inflicting, pain upon them, which is absolutely not in our DI creed. But anyway, man, I digress about that because I wasn't there and I don't want to act like I was, but I did experience a lot of the after effects being a senior leader on the West Coast Depot after it happened, for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. Okay, so we wrap up with DI duty, and you are.
Yeah, so from there, I thought I was going to get orders to first CEB, and then just as I was about to leave Paris Island, I found out my orders changed to first MLG to the General's Building, G4, which I was not thrilled about at the time. It wasn't until I got plugged into the G4 that I started really enjoying what I was doing, which was facilities, processing requests for renovations, repairs, new military construction, also getting to see things from that level of the Marine Corps. But of course, with that, it also becomes quite monotonous.
Tell everybody about your decision to apply to be a warrant officer, and then talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so being up at the G4, so at the G4, as soon as I left the drill field, I knew that I needed to get help. I could already start seeing things falling apart. I had an incident at the house between my wife and I. Nothing crazy, but enough to have my wife say, "You really need to go get help." So I went to medical and said, "Hey, I need to talk to someone." And so they sent me over to talk to mental health. Talking with mental health, I told them some of my symptoms. They asked if I had ever had any hallucinations, and I was honest with them, and I told them yes. And I was actually referring to when I was a drill instructor being sleep deprived and malnourished. But this was stuff that this provider had never heard clearly in her life. Also, bringing up moments from my first deployment, even our deployment together. This was stuff that provider had never heard before, and it clearly freaked her out. She actually put me on limited duty immediately. Without my knowledge. And I mean, that takes a lot of signatures. So here I was, checked into a new unit. All of a sudden, they had limited duty paperwork on me, and I was mortified. So I felt like I couldn't trust medical. I felt like I couldn't go there anymore. So I was already at a bit of a disadvantage of my own. I'm not blaming medical or the provider, but certainly I could feel the monotony mounting. I could feel myself looking to medicate myself, which came with alcohol. Suddenly, I wasn't drinking because football was on. I wasn't drinking because I wasn't having one or two. I was drinking because I had a headache or my back was hurting. I started slowly trying to find ways to drink without my wife noticing. Slowly, I started finding ways to drink before I could get home. Slowly, I was prioritizing drinking over my wife and my family. So this was this mounting thing. And then I fell immediately back into trying to find a new duty station or billet. So here I was at MLG. I'd already done deployments. I'd already done hot fill orders. I'd already done DI duty. I was all of a sudden around all these chief warrant officers and thought, yeah, that's what's next. I can easily forget about all this stuff that I'm dealing with in my head and physically, and I can just go do that and forget about all this other stuff for a while.
Wearing a mask.
Yeah. So I started putting the package together. I had written you at one point to find out your thoughts on going warrant officer, and
I remember.
Yeah. So anyway, I did very well on the warrant officer board. I was ranked first in the regiment, first in the MLG. So I nabbed both of those on the board. And then just before going to Wobick, my wife caught me drinking before coming home, and she told me flat out, you cannot be doing this. You have to stop drinking. And I did the same thing that I always did. I thought for sure she was the crazy one. How dare she come between me and my drinking? Of course, all of this sounds absurd now, but at the time, I completely conceptualized that this was very normal. I had, this was my thing, and I had to have this. So, went to Wobick, and I was definitely not even, I should have been better prepared. I should have been in better shape. Instead, I was several steps behind. It didn't take long to be there away from my support system, which was my wife, to get in trouble. I wound up getting in trouble up late, drinking, wound up violating a barracks order, wound up embarrassing myself and my family, my wife, and at my community. At this point, I did not know what to do. I was told to just keep training. So anyway, I wound up finishing that course, and then they wound up keeping me there a little bit longer to start sorting this out. Of course, at this point, the the word had been out.
It's okay.
So
Sorry.
at this point, okay, so for the first time, I was in trouble. I'd never been in trouble before. I had seen other people get in trouble. I'd certainly heard stories about what it's like to be in trouble. Like when you're sat down as a hat and you see people walk right by you that
You're
pretend like,
isolated, man. You feel
yeah.
isolated and alone and by yourself, and nobody has your back and stuff.
So yeah, I'd heard stuff like that. Never really didn't believe it. Uh, and I'm not complaining. I understand why people were separating themselves from me. I think what was surprising was the level of which it happened, and I don't think anyone was doing it out of malice, but I felt very alone. I felt very embarrassed, and so I went up for NJP. I got NJP'd for drunk and disorderly. At which point I thought it was all done and over with. I thought it was behind me. But then they told me I was going up for BOI, Board of Inquiry. So I wound up hanging around there even longer. And this is in Quantico. At this point, I really recognized that I'd really let down. I mean myself, but that feels silly to say, because most egregiously, I let down my wife. I let down my family. I let down a new community that had welcomed me into their arms, a 1310 community. Let down the Marine Corps, which had never let me down. So anyway, while this was all going on, I had stopped drinking, and this was a very peculiar thing that I was not expecting. So one of the things that the command had told me to do, they said, because I had asked them, I said, tell me what to do. I'll do it. They said, stop drinking. I said, okay, you got it. When I stopped drinking, all of these other symptoms started bubbling up that I had been suppressing for so many years. Stuff that I hadn't thought about since that day on deployment. Stuff that I expanded thoughts, like my role in the military industrial complex. Huge big thoughts. And this was from like the mental side of it. Physically, when I stopped drinking, I started having seizures, and I started having these headaches, and I still have them, the seizures as well, but these headaches that go down the right side of my head. So I started having these seizures. I started having these severe headaches. Started having this depression and everything. And so with that, compiled with all of this legal stuff, I wound up at one point I wound up trying to commit suicide. So I just want to say I'm only bringing this up. We both know a lot of guys that have cut
Yeah.
their journey short.
Yes.
Sorry. If anyone is watching this, if anyone's watching this and is able to pull anything out of this, that's why I'm sharing this. So anyway, at one point, alone in the barracks room, I had tried to hang myself quite violently. In doing so, I wound up fracturing the C2 vertebrae. Was even my wife and I were just talking about this. We were kind of prepping some questions. She was fielding questions to me, and she asked me what my worst day was. And I told her my worst day was when I told her that I tried to kill myself. And she said, so it wasn't the day that you tried to hang yourself? And I said, no. And that's because for someone who's in that mindset, that's a completely normal thing. It's like if you're out of shape, you go to the gym. I thought about it for so long. I had conceptualized it into being a rational thing that I could just do. It was just another thing, like on the to-do list. But by the time I told her, I was out of that mindset. So I was already back to what a thud that would have been to everything.
Yeah. thank you for sharing. I know that it's taken a lot out of you in order to share this, but I agree with your mindset that if you can help, one person through your journey and wearing a mask and sort of only halfway dealing with the things that you're truly going through, instead of fully, committing, to isolating those things and dealing with those problems separately, like that's big, man. Like, I really appreciate you being very vulnerable and honest.
At one point when I was a drill instructor, a cocky young sergeant, on Facebook, I had a status that said, "Humility is not a part of JJ Did Tie Buckle," and you commented on there.
Yeah. Yeah. Bullshit.
And I was thinking about that today when I was driving. I was like,
Yeah.
Here I am, really trying to humble myself. And I thought back to that Facebook post. I thought that I got a kick out of that. But yeah, so that incident, so the barracks there, they have these really heavy doors inside the barracks room, and I'd used that to have this rig with this belt that I had. By the grace of God, I had mismeasured. So when I wound up dropping, it was kind of like a jump and drop. But so anyway, it didn't work. At which point I thought, all right, well, I can try that again some other time. I kept that close to my chest. I didn't actually find out about the C2 until a little bit later when they did an MRI, and there was no hiding that. It's actually called the hangman's fracture. So anyway, went up for BOI. The first level at BOI, I thought I was a shoo-in. Never been in trouble before. Always been, performing near the top. They wound up recommending separation, to which, of course, I had a bit of a meltdown. Around that time, I started cutting, and that wasn't like a suicide thing. That was more like a control thing. And I still have the scars on my thighs. At one point, I tried carving off my Marine Corps tattoo. And I also recognized, though, on those days that I had those experiences with cutting, they were also, I had been on and off different medications that they were trying. They had me on, I forget the medication. They had me on several different medications. The two times that I had cut myself very badly on my thighs and tried cutting my Marine Corps tattoo off, those were two times that I was off a specific medication. So anyway, moving forward from that, at this point, my family, they had moved to Quantico. We had a house on base. Everywhere I went, I figured everyone knew about me. Everyone was watching me and pointing at me. I became very paranoid. However, I wound up finding religion on Quantico. At one point, Kirby and I were making our way up north. We were in St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City and made a prayer to St. Jude, who's the patron saint of lost causes. And we weren't like religious or anything. We were just passing through. And we actually made that prayer. We lit the candle, hoping to get all the BOI stuff wrapped up. But about a month later, we wound up walking into the chaplain's office in Quantico to inquire about Catholicism. So that's been extremely substantial.
Yeah, it's helped you a lot in your recovery process. I'm certain. Really grounded you, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you are, you're going through a lot, but, you're taking these, little steps, towards, better pastures. And ultimately, from the results from your BOI, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you were, at the same time you were going through that process, you then happened to discover, the C2 vertebrae and a number of other neurological issues that you had, and you were put on a med board, correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct. So the basic school was fantastic. At one point you had said the best thing to do for a Marine that's in trouble is, at first, of course, you got to do what you got to do. But then after that, you pick them back up and you get them back out there. I was extremely fortunate. The basic school afforded me the opportunity to go be seen by medical. Medical there on Quantico said, hey, there's a lot of stuff going on. I'd also actually gotten a concussion while towards the end of training at Wobic. I actually had cranial fluid coming out of my nose.
Oh, Jesus.
So they took me up to Fort Belvoir and did some tests on me up there. They got me plugged in with the Intrepid Spirit Clinic, the TBI clinic. I can't say enough great things about them. But yeah, so they initiated a med board for traumatic brain injury with mild to severe cognitive disorder. So that was running concurrently with the
Did you
BOI
get that
process.
concussion? Like, what was it, like during pugil sticks, or like did you fall or something?
Yeah, so
I have to ask, man.
yeah,
Cranial
no,
fluid
of
up your
course.
nose. That's crazy.
During the most unathletic thing of my life, going over the cargo net on the endurance course. You know, so have you run that endurance course out there?
Not the one at TBS, no.
So the cargo net is towards the end of it. I forget if I think it's a 5 miler. It's the same one Jodie Foster runs in the beginning of Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
FBI stuff. Yeah.
yeah, it's the same course. But yeah, towards the end of it, there's a tall cargo net. You crawl up one side, then you come down the other. I was crawling up it, going over the other side. The weight of my pack went first, and then I
Man.
followed with it. Wound up falling on my head and neck when
Oh,
I might have been out for a second or two, but when they got to me, the first thing I asked was, "Are we doing EDIPI or social?" They're like, "What?"
so the medevac?
For yeah,
Yeah, ambulance transfer.
no, not for like for the tests, because like at the top of each test you have to write, you know, your so
I got you.
like as if I was trying to fill out a test,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Are we doing EDIPI or social?" And I got mad at them for not
Yeah.
answering me straight.
Damn,
And
man.
so and then I bumped my head again like a week later. It wasn't as bad, but you know, if you get a back-to-back
Oh,
concussion,
yeah.
and I mean, you know, in high school I played a little football. I also wrestled. Plus, you know, just being a Marine. At one point, my good man Brian Williams retired me from boxing down at Leatherneck Square. He's a southpaw boxer. He's about my height. Never boxed southpaw before. Kept stepping into the big hook.
I'm sure.
So anyway,
Sorry, man. I mean, I just wanted to ask you that. So now talk about, so now you're, that med board process and pick it up.
so the more they dug into it, the more they found. They would keep finding things like vestibular damage inside this ear. And again, this all goes back to as soon as I stopped drinking, all of these symptoms started bubbling up. That again, alcohol, it's depressant. It's able to, you know, change your brain chemistry because we're talking years of using this stuff all the time. So I wound up, my brain chemistry wound up finding a rhythm to mitigate all of these other issues. And so then as soon as I cut that out, my body was like, you know, okay, so we're messed up.
Yeah.
Also, as well, taking away that high op tempo that I was constantly chasing.
Yes, no doubt.
Yeah,
Okay, so you ended up getting honorably discharged.
that's correct.
And I know it's an important term, and you get medically discharged. Before we talk about your redemption story, about what you're doing now and the status of your family and all those good things, would you mind sharing? Because believe me, man, I don't know who's going to see this. It'll be out there for anybody to see, but I assure you that, one, you've been open and honest and transparent, which is huge, because in the Marine Corps, in the military, we do a very good job of like unintentionally telling people that they should wear a mask and like hide your problems, because we really value fit for full duty and performance. That's what we value in the military. And a lot of times that's what you were doing. And there's a lot of other dudes out there that are watching it too. And there's a lot of guys out there and gals going through similar things, but different, but they're out there wearing a mask and stuff. What do you kind of message, do you say to them? Like, if you could turn back the clock, 8 years, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, so whether it's physical or mental, either one is a stigma in the Marine Corps. It is what it is. Specifically, the mental side of it.
Yeah.
I would say that the brain, and you could use that as TBI, or you know, the PTSD as it seems like a buzzword these days, but it's another organ. It's another part of your body. If someone showed up for PT with a broken leg, everyone would be like, "You're an idiot. Go to medical." It's the same thing. If you showed up to PT with a broken brain, everyone should be saying, "Go to medical." And that being said, it's not everyone's responsibility. It is in fact your responsibility. No one is going to take better care of you than you.
So the way
So
I
it's just
interpreted that is like, hey, it's like you need to self-evaluate yourself and get your issues taken care of rather than, keep covering them up.
right. And now that being said, a lot of times that is difficult to catch when you're in that process.
Yeah, it
So
is.
certainly, like you're saying, self-evaluate. You might have several little red flags. So it might be possible to. It might be difficult, that is, to see those red flags. I would certainly say to anybody watching that has thought about harming themselves or made plans to harm themselves, I can definitely tell you that. So as someone who has made this made this plan and made it a good plan that makes sense, um I know that people have said, call me, I'd rather listen to you than bury you, and all that stuff, and I know that people mean that, but I also know that, based on my own self and a lot of the people that I know that have killed themselves, there are no warning signs. So keeping your cards close to your chest. This goes back to you've got to help yourself, because no one else will. And again, it might be difficult right now to even see those red flags, because right now harming yourself might not be a red flag. Kirby stumped me with this earlier, as a matter of fact, because she asked me, what could you say to somebody? I'm sorry for weaving, but there's nothing that can't be fixed. It might not be the same as it was before, but that's not to say it can't be fixed. It
That's
might not be
perfect.
as good. It might not be the same as before, but it can at least be different than it is now.
That's perfect, man. That is absolutely perfect. That is something that, somebody can understand for sure. Think about it, man. Like if you were successful in your attempt in that barracks room, you didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And look at what you're doing, now. And I can tell, that you're not perfect. None of us are perfect. And I know that you still carry the weight of a lot of these things that have happened. But look at what the hell you're doing today. Matter of fact, I want you to tell everybody about, like how you're doing now, your family, your health, your sobriety, what you're doing for work, man. You go for it.
Yeah, thank you. Getting out of the Marine Corps, it was not easy. I didn't have anything lined up. That wasn't the plan. We had done 14 years in the Marines, and that the plan was to stay in. At first, the plan was to get out and collect a check from the government, but then I knew that it's not me, it's not us. So we moved back down here to Beaufort. Before doing that, I locked on a job with Beaufort County as a building inspector.
Yeah.
Now, as everyone knows from being in the military, those skills don't always transfer to the
Yours,
civilian world. I was lucky enough that my former boss took a chance on me and was willing to mentor me. And so that was the first step in the right direction. It wasn't great pay, but the experience I got from that was fantastic. Working in that job, transitioning into the VA, that became another kind of roadblock, because all that great medical support I was getting from the Intrepid Spirit Clinic was all of a sudden gone. So getting set back up with the VA was difficult. So I thought, oh, I know how to fix this. I actually started drinking again.
oh,
Same result as before. Well, no, not the same result. But as far as losing my mind, at one point I ran off barefoot into the night. Well, wandered off, really. Because that mixed with the medications and stuff like that. So anyway, I say that to say, we recognize that the stress of getting out, the stress of what we had just been through, the stress of a new job was too much. So we had to listen to ourselves and wound up taking a year off from work. I enrolled in the Citadel as a veteran day student, started taking day classes, started doing the same thing as all. I got sober again, but then started doing the same thing, wound up doing 18 to 21 credits a semester, and saw myself doing that same thing where I was trying to be as busy as possible.
yep.
So with that, scaled back. wound up, and now this is where things started really, really clicking though. At the Citadel, wound up winning the a spot on the Tommy Baker Fellows Veteran Program. It's an internship with Tommy Baker. He's a former veteran day student. Now he owns all the major car dealerships up in Charleston. So got on with that. It was an internship. And with that, I got a job building houses with a custom builder down here in Beaufort. Working for him for a little bit. It's a small community, so people start to talk. Another custom builder heard about me, made me an offer, wanted to go to work with him. In the meantime, still working with the Citadel, started working on my MBA. I've been with this current company for 2 years. I generally handle between 5 and 8 projects at a time. My average house that I somewhere around, I think, 1.2 million, but they're totally custom and they're really cool. Started working on my own company, Lehman Construction Group, LLC.
Yeah.
As it turns out, as a 100% 100% combat wounded veteran, you qualify for so many different things. As a small business owner, you can get a service disabled veteran owned certification from the Small Business Administration. And with that comes a bunch of other perks, specifically getting federal contracts. So working slowly on that, but we just recently bought, within the last couple of years, bought a new house, brand new house. My kids, we have 4 kids. They're all, they're kids. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
My wife, I can't overstate how fantastic my wife has been. And this is a point at which I understand that I'm very lucky and that I know that other people don't have the support system that I do. Because without her, none of this would have been possible. None of my ambition, my drive, my house, like when I say house, I mean the family, none of it would be possible without her. But she's doing great. For some reason, she's still with me.
Much love, Kirby. Much love to you. Much love to you. And let me ask you this, man. Like, how are you guys getting along? Like within the walls of your home, you guys getting along pretty well? Energy's good and stuff.
You know what is it's weird. Well, I guess it's not weird. I guess it's not weird that when I stopped drinking, we would get along better. We're certainly doing much better. She decided that she was going to stand in solidarity and not drink. She never had a problem drinking, but just to help me out, because certainly when you're trying to not drink, it's difficult being around a bunch of people who are drinking. If everyone knows you're not drinking, automatically everyone assumes that you're going to turn into a feral animal. So Kirby decided that she was going to, in solidarity, not drink. But no, we are fantastic. And again, shout out to Father Jerry on Quantico, who really, really helped us out. We had to go through the whole marriage prep course with him. I've already been married for 10, 11 maybe years, but we still had to go through a year of marriage prep with Father Jerry before we could renew our vows in the Catholic Church. And even doing that marriage prep, with Father Jerry, we learned so much about each other and how relationships work. And I don't want to come off as one of those people that, I don't want to come off as overly preachy, but this is something that worked for us. And so really establishing those roles within our relationship, that really helped out. It's been blessed beyond reason.
I'm so happy for you. Obviously, I was very worried about you and concerned about you for a lot of years, but following your journey, just gives me a lot of confidence in your future that you're sober. And I would ask you, please don't turn to the bottle again when if things get tough. Fight alongside your wife, Miss Kirby, and fight alongside your children. Just remember, man, you guys got to be, in each other's corner at all times, and just fight alongside together, move forward, together. And what the alcohol bottle is going to do to you, man. Not much good's going to come out of it for you.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. It's one day at a time. It's all about how you look at it.
Right. Yeah, and certainly no pressure, but I'm always praying for you, man.
Thank you.
Dude, it's been almost 55 minutes and you have 4 children and a wife there in South Carolina. So I'm about ready to, let you go on liberty. But do you have any save rounds or anything you'd like to, that you'd like to share before, we cut you free?
I would just like to say, when it comes to post-traumatic stress, it can certainly be more than just I saw a dead body or I heard a boom. For me personally, a lot of it was my understanding of how I fit into the war, the industrial complex. And again, I'm not trying to be disparaging. War is a messy, it's but there's so many different ways to process all those different avenues. So please don't assume that just because you're looking at something from a different angle that there's not an answer to that. I would like to say, when it comes to drinking, there's many different resources out there. Something that helped me out personally, at the time I wasn't religious, the AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, which it's very faith based. I liked the idea of it. However, it wasn't just right. If I could recommend, especially to the military guys, Russell Brand has a book called Recovery, and he actually inserts the F word into about every step to help you understand specifically these military guys.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, the first step is, am I effed up? The second step is, could I not be effed up? Stuff like that. And it helps you break down, between yourself. You don't necessarily have to have a whole group. You don't have to go, put yourself out there with a whole group. You can get the audio book. You can, get the hard copy. You can work through it with yourself. He gives you notes to get a notepad out and write down every single thing that you've done wrong while intoxicated, stuff like that. I would also like to note that if you're uncomfortable going to get help, going to talk to somebody, talk to a stranger, or if even more, if you do work up the courage to go talk to someone and it's not a right match, it can certainly feel like that was a big waste of time. I'm never going to try this again.
Yeah. Good point.
I would like to throw out there something I've been using a lot recently. All of these chat GPT, these AI platforms, you can work through cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy on those apps. So say, for instance, I don't know, I'll just use as an example. This didn't happen in real life, but say I tried to call Mark Chabot, he didn't answer, and I'm going to start reeling that in my head like, is he mad at me? Does he hate me? Did I do something to piss him off? I talk to my robot, I say, this happened. And then this is, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's going to start listing out, this was the event. This is, reasons why Mark didn't answer the phone. But also more in depth, just earlier, I was working out my suicide attempt with ChatGPT. And again, I know people have reservations about it, but as far as having an anonymous, platform to work things out with, it's been a huge tool. And I've been seeing a lot of good results from that. So if you're looking for something quick and easy, that is not the hotline, which in my experience is not always helpful, just try that. I'm throwing mud against the wall trying to get anything to stick here.
No, I hear you. I appreciate it, man. It's really, really important that you got to try to nip this stuff in the bud early, before. I think sometimes, like, especially in your situation, you're almost becoming like a human volcano, and then ultimately you erupted, and then it got really, really bad before it started getting better for you. And I think that the whole thing is to stay, left of that eruption, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully that, that the viewers out there, first off, man, like, thank you for paying forward your experience, because I do believe that your transparency and your honesty, it'll probably get some people, to look in the mirror, some things maybe that they're doing or some of their experiences, and get them to reflect. And also you can help people process through their own thoughts. You're also, Jonathan, letting people know that they weren't by themselves. A lot of other dudes and gals that are products of a two-front war over 20 years have the same exact thoughts as you. They're just not as open and sharing as you were. So, I admire your courage. I know that, you have children, you have a wife, and you get a lot of friends and stuff, and you probably get a little bit uncomfortable and vulnerable, but I do believe that it is indeed helpful to others what you are doing. Thank you.
Yes, sir. It was an honor. Thank you for having me.
No, man, I appreciate it, man. To Left, Right, Left viewers, man, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Jonathan. Hey, keep on getting after life, man. Let's go ahead and keep on moving forward. Take care now, everybody. Have a good night.